Want to have a good time for a good cause? Joey's Song brings together a group of artists that include Rock and Roll Hall of Famers, multiple Grammy winners, and top 40 hitmakers to Madison each January to help raise money in the fight against epilepsy. To date, $1.3 million has been raised with the help of these top artists playing for free. Over 4 days, January 8th through January 11th, Joey's Song's Freezing Man Festival will hold epic concerts for the cause. Find out more at joeysong.org. Today on CityCast Madison. Happy New Year! We've made it to 2025 and there's a lot to celebrate and a lot to look forward to, including in the month of January. From enjoying our Ice Age trails on foot, snowshoe, or ski, to indoor live music festivals like Freezing Man, Wisconsin Funk Fest, and Punk Festival, to the 40th annual Madison and Dane County Martin Luther King Day observance. It's gonna be a great month. The CityCast Madison team has you covered with your guide to January in Madison. It's Thursday, January 2nd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Oh my God, it's the new year! I am pretty stoked to see you. And mark what is a momentous beginning. I feel like January is a nice month. I realize I have not introduced you. Rob Thomas, our newsletter editor, who's joining me for this January guide. How are you?
I'm doing good. So far, so good for 2025.
So far, so good. I think that we're no strangers to the cold weather that January brings. And we're in that solid period where it's like, it's winter. But we haven't had a terribly snowy January. But we're going to bring you some things that we think that you might want to get up to this month. And we're going to start with the outdoors. Because frankly, that's where I want to be in January. Like, if I'm going to be doing an activity, I kind of want to be bundled and like in the elements.
No, I agree. I mean, in some ways, I think, it's not winter if your cheeks aren't red and you're not out there. And you're just saying, especially by January, you're like, this is Wisconsin. This is winter. Let's do this. Let's go ice skating. Let's go, walking in the woods. Let's not shy away from the truth of where we are and when.
Yes, like we're not surprised. We're going to brace the elements, and we just have serene nature. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for listening. And if you don't already know, Wisconsin just is one of the most beautiful states in the country. Been to most of the states, and it holds true. And we're here in the driftless area where there's no glacial drift, so we've got this like curvy, gorgeous hills and forests, just like you mentioned. So let's talk about places and things you can do getting outside, starting with hiking. Like, consider hiking some of the 38.5 miles of Ice Age Trail that wind through Dane County. They're just gorgeous, such peaceful activity to do, and some recommendations for where. If you haven't been to Indian Lake, it's pretty nearby, and it's a really fun place with lots of trails and tranquility. Cross Plains, Table Bluff, and Brooklyn Wildlife, all of those have really great Ice Age Trail segments to check out. And, there's a little snow on the ground right now as we're recording this, quite just a little, but I'm expecting at some point in January, we'll actually get inches of snow that snowshoeing would be a cool idea. I constantly hope to go snowshoeing and feel like that is the way to spend January. Some recommendations for where to go snowshoeing. Door Creek Park and Yahara Hills are some places that I've heard recommended. And then in terms of like, if you don't have snowshoes, which I would fall into that category, there are a few places that you can rent them for pretty cheap, including the Wisconsin Union. If you want to rent some snowshoes, it's like $8 an hour if you stay on Lake Mendota. So I see people doing that. I feel like they're the cool kids among us. So that's one place. Also, the city of Madison. They rent out snowshoes at warming shelters Celebrations at Door Creek, Vilas, and Elver Parks. And they do that Wednesday through Sunday, and it's like $5 an hour. So I feel like it's pretty reasonable. Definitely check out the hours for when those are open because the weekends have slightly different hours, more hours than the weekdays. So check that out. If you're not a snowshoer, skiing and tubing. Tyrrell Basin. That's our our spot. Have you been there, Rob?
I haven't. I have not. I grew up in Colorado and skied a lot there, but I've not really skied since I came to Wisconsin.
Okay, well, maybe this January is the time. Yeah, we had this awesome Middleton teenager who ended up being in the Olympics for skiing, and she definitely mentioned Tyrrell Basin as a place to check out. I've never skied myself, but I've tubed.
That gets you down the hill.
It does.
Right?
It does. But I actually I said I hadn't skied. I have cross country skied in like a small little area. Like I've put skis on my feet.
Just imagine that, but faster. And
But
then
faster.
you pretty much got downhill skiing. Yeah.
Yeah. I also growing up, I thought that snowboarding was really cool.
Yeah. Always looked harder to me as a skier. When the snowboarders would whiz by, that always looked harder to me. That one I never tried. But
so are you thinking, like, coming from Colorado, I people go out there for the the fluff. Like people like have terminology that I don't have.
The powder. Yeah.
Have you heard anything about Madison's or like this area?
I have, yeah. And I think probably coming from Colorado, I was a little bit snobbish about the skiing here. And that's why I didn't for a few years. And now I've just sort of lost the habit. And now when I think about Wisconsin, it's much more affordable than going to Colorado or Lake Tahoe.
Sure.
So kind of like the snowshoeing you mentioned, it's a great place to learn how to ski and not break the bank. So yeah, I think it's something it would be fun to get back into if my knees would be receptive to the idea, I think. Yeah.
You have to whisper to them, are you receptive yet? Yeah. So in terms of cross-country trails, which there are a number, when there is snow on the ground, these are groomed weekly at Cherokee Marsh South. Those trails, Owen, Turville Point, and Yahara Hills. There's also 2 spots for skiing in Middleton to check out, Blackhawk Ski Club and CXC Outdoor Center. So yeah, for all of y'all out there that like doing that, it's around. I'm now going to talk about something I like doing that I have done before, which is birding. If you're going to be out here hiking, why not just include or add a little additional fun and try and check out what birds are around you. Before I'd ever done birding, I knew there were birds around, but when you actually slow down to be intentional to look, and you'd be just shocked at how many species you can see. And it's kind of a magical experience. If you followed us, if you've listened to our show, we've talked with Dexter Patterson, the Wisco birder, a number of times on the show with the BIPOC Birding Club of Wisconsin. I know that they put together great group adventures for birding, and they also have supplies. But if you want to hit it solo, go out just with a smaller group of people, Madison Public Library has birding backpacks that you can check out.
They make it almost too easy. I mean, there's really no excuse to not get out and enjoy Wisconsin winter.
Yeah, you leave the Madison Public Library and you have no excuse for anything. They've got it all. That's right.
They've got it all. Nope, we got that. Yep.
Yeah. Or if you're like me and during the pandemic, just like doubled down and bought your binoculars, are ready to hit the trails, like January is a perfect time to do it for sure. In terms of some spots, and there's definitely overlapped in some of the hikes we've mentioned, but great places to see birds, Cherokee Marsh, Pheasant Branch Conservancy, Nine Springs, Owen Conservation Park, and of course, our Arboretum. But yeah, so tons of stuff to do outdoors, but also winter is this lovely time where you also want to be indoors. I don't know. I've heard of it, Rob.
I was an indoor kid for sure, Bianca. So I'm all about it. And, so Januaries are funny in Madison when it comes to concerts and indoor things, because it's very quiet in some ways, because like the UW students aren't back till later in the month, and a lot of artists aren't touring yet. But that leaves space for all these really interesting kind of annual traditions. So now it is really busy in January and there's lots going on, which is super cool. The big one I would mention would be the Joey Song benefit concerts, which were the early January to raise money for epilepsy research. And there's sort of these all-star jam sessions curated by Butch Vig of Garbage, inviting friends, and then musicians would come, have a great time, and then bring more friends. Last year's show, I think, was over 3 hours, sold out at the Sylvia. I mean, these are huge to the point that so it's now expanded into a 4-day festival called Freezing Man, which goes from January 8th to January 11th. And so you'll get that big all-star concert at the Sylvie on the last day, January 11th. But leading up to that, those 3 days, there are smaller concerts, and you've got members of Belly, you've got the Silver Sun Pickups, a great live band, Portugal the Man, the members of the Bangles, and more, playing together, playing their own shows, and all raising money for this great cause. So it's really become this big thing, and all of a sudden, early January in Madison is what's happening when it comes to live music.
And I saw that they've raised over $1.3 million doing this because those musicians aren't being paid. They're doing it for the cause.
Right. And it's fun for them too. I've talked to a couple of them, and they're like, yeah, we're always on tour, so we never see each other. So the chance to like get together, and they just like, like for the jam session the night before, they're like, what should we play? They bring some of their favorite songs, they rehearse them, and then the next night they go out and bash it out. So it's a really fun time. And, as I said, the cause can't be beat. Mm-hmm. And the other thing for live music is, like I said, because national touring acts aren't touring, that leaves space to check out local music. And every year for a while now, there's been these Wisconsin fests in Madison where a bunch of local bands from a certain genre get together. So like, you have the Wisconsin Funk Fest at the Majestic on January 11th. You've got the Wisconsin Punk Fest on January 17th. There's a Wisconsin Metal Fest. And they're really fun. They're at the Majestic and the High Noon. And they're really fun because, like, if you're a fan of that genre, you'll go because you probably know a band or two on that bill, but you'll get introduced to a couple other ones, a couple of up-and-comers who you don't know. And it's a great way to sort of start the year and connect with the local music scene and find some new favorite bands.
Yes. Yeah. And I love it when it's that energy too, because it is kind of fun for the bands, as you mentioned, for them to be coming together. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Same kind of thing where like, hey, let's play together and hang out. And so those are really fun and very affordable.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
And then another thing that's happening, this is a long-standing Madison tradition. They say it's the 47th annual, but they say that every year, so you don't take it seriously. It's the MadFest Juggling Extravaganza, which, people may not know that Madison, Wisconsin is sort of a haven for jugglers, and we have Truly Remarkable Loon and Mark Hayward. And so this event every January brings together some of those local favorites with like world-renowned jugglers, and I guess sometimes they call them like motion performers and stuff, like
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's usually
coming from Circus Town and Baraboo, I guess I'm not sure.
That's right. That's probably the real root of why there's so many jugglers here. It's really a fun, very family-friendly show. And this year it's January 18th at the Barrymore Theater. So that's a really fun January tradition in Madison. And then if you're a bibliophile, if you love books, you want to start the year off, find some good reads. You've read the books you got for Christmas. There's the Grown Up Book Fair, which is going to take place at the Sylvie January 25th and January 26th. And it's sort of like, if you remember the Scholastic Book Fair when you were a kid, where like you'd go into the gymnasium and there'd be all these rows of books set up, and you could, get the next Goosebumps or
I remember.
Yeah. I mean, I would.
It's a special day.
It is. I mean, you'd come out there with an armload of books, and it would be some stuff from your favorite series and some stuff you'd never heard of before. And I loved it. I mean, it was so much fun. But, we're not allowed to go as adults. And the grown up book fair is sort of the next level because it is a bunch of, local independent bookstores that come together at the Sylvie and the floor of where the audience usually stands. There's all these little kind of mini bookstores, and you get your tote bag and you walk from one to the other. And Leopold's is there, Lake City Books. It's really fun, and it's fun because each one has kind of its own vibe. Like I remembered we went last year. We were going to go on a trip to Denmark, and we went to the Leopold's one, and they always have it arranged by country. So I got a book on Denmark while I was there. They have specialty cocktails that the bartenders at the Sylvie are serving up. So you kind of wander, drink while you're shopping. And it's just a really fun time. And it usually sells out. So if you want on that one, you should probably get tickets early.
I mean, that sounds like, an adult dream.
I mean, basically, right.
And honestly, the Sylvie, man, they are killing it in terms of some of these bigger community events and using that space. We've got, of course, shout out to all of our theaters, but I want to mention another event that this is bringing up, which is at the Sylvie, and it's another adult dream, certainly one of mine. It's the Wisconsin Drag Awards.
Yes.
It's also happening in January. That one's on January 19th, and it is an opportunity for a night of glamour, talent, and unforgettable performances. I'm looking at the lineup now. They've got this, dozens of performers lined up. And it's one of those things that you can go get dressed up. They actually have a red carpet. So from 5 to 7, you can come in and be seen and the whole shabam. And they have a photo wall, take photos, and a vendor fair, so that's what it made me think of in mingling. And then this award show with some of our best drag performances in the state. And it's going to be emceed by, of course, one of our favorites, Bianca Lynn Breeze, and as well as Brianna Banks. So 2 huge talents in the drag scene.
Right.
And, if you want to celebrate people that make your life better and bring joy, I mean, that's another great opportunity for being inside and having your spirit warmed and dressing up and grabbing a drink.
Absolutely. You take your introverted self to the book fair and then take your extroverted self to the drag awards. Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of taking yourself places, so we've got the outdoors, the indoors. This is, just something when it comes to January, we think of in Madison, which is celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I really think Madison goes hard for MLK
Good.
Day.
And they should.
Yeah. I mean, you've lived here. It's true.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, really, really big celebrations, numerous events, and recognizing, his legacy and just educating folks on what King stood for. In fact, I've seen that our county has one of the oldest running celebrations in the country. I've seen it cited as the oldest.
Wow.
And this year, it's the 40th anniversary of the Madison-Dane County Martin Luther King Jr. Day observance. So should be a big one. We'd probably bring it up, any other year because it is something to be involved in for sure in January. We spoke with the organizers of that event last year. And last year they featured a member of the Little Rock Nine as one of the guests of honor.
That's right.
They do a grand celebration at the Overture Center that's very community focused. I'm getting goosebumps from right now for some reason.
Yeah.
This year it's on January 20th and they do from 5 to 6 freedom songs. So people are singing from this gorgeous community choir that is also a major part of the celebration that is completely community. Anyone is welcome. You don't have to be able to sing, but they always sound incredible. But they have a few, if you want to be involved in that community choir, they've got a few rehearsals basically the week leading up. And there's no requirements. You literally go and you'll be a part of it, which I just love that. And the featured guest this year is also, of course, just another really special guest of honor, Bishop Vashti McKenzie. She is the first female bishop ever of the AME Church. She is also the president / the general secretary of the National Council of Churches. So just a really big hitter who's coming to the Madison community. And, I want to mention a couple of other events around this celebration. They always have an ecumenical service that reflects on Dr. King and social justice and economic justice. And if you want to go to that, we'll definitely post in our show notes the link to the King Coalition details on all the events I'm discussing. But you also there get a little preview of the community choir. There's always MLK free community dinner that's happening this year on January 17th, just in line with King's principles. Everyone should be able to eat over at Gordon Dining and Event Center. And then there's a Youth Day of Service. So that one's on January 20th, as well as the celebration, where the King Coalition partners with all of these local organizations, the Urban League of Greater Madison, the city, Dane County, MSCR, Madison Out of School Time, Madison Public Library, and others, where they invite middle schoolers in for this MLK Day Youth's Call to Service with workshops and lunch. And it just sets the scene for the whole year, honestly, and steeping in these principles. And there's a registration for that if you have kids in that age group. So definitely check that out. And of course, there's another standout celebration that's always held at the state capitol, where our government leaders come and speak. And there's also music. And, that's also a very special thing.
I think, what I love about what Madison does is there are those big kind of memorial celebration events of his life and what he did. But then there are these ground level, grassroots, put into action, connected to what's going on in Madison today, get set for tomorrow. And I think that's really the best way to honor his legacy is to, keep it moving forward.
It's so true. What is it without the grassroots and the people in our community,
Yeah.
Speaking of a community in Madison, I wanted to shout out another great exhibit that you guys are going to hear from us. We've got an interview coming up with two of the artists from this exhibit, but I'll just give a little sneak peek that's directly tied to MLK Jr.'s history. This is an exhibit called I Am a Man, The Rehumanization of Black Men, and it's curated by local artist Sharon Bird, and it's over at the Goodman South Madison Public Library over on South Park Street. And it's very special, and they are holding community events, one including on January 18th, so leading up to MLK Day, where they're just engaging folks with the exhibit. And it's based in the name, if you recognize that I Am a Man slogan, it emerged during 1968 Memphis sanitation worker strike, which was a protest against dangerous conditions for Black workers. And Dr. King spent his final days standing in solidarity with those workers. So that's a really great event that we could definitely recommend, and a way to, honor this moment. Also, UW-Madison always has a symposium, and this year is certainly an exciting one because their guest of honor is Donzalee Abernathy, the youngest daughter of American Civil Rights Movement co-founder Reverend Dr. Ralph Abernathy, and she's the goddaughter of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., so that's going to be special. And it's a special time. Another thing is that MLK Day marks the return of students to UW-Madison, so we can get ready for that part of Madison life where student life is brimming on campus again. Spring semester, hello, friend.
That's right. But January is this nice little transition period where we get to kind of, enjoy the winter a little bit before things start ramping up again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm glad I get to enjoy it with you, and we get to enjoy it with all of you listening. It should be a good month.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bianca.
That's Rob Thomas, our newsletter editor, and me with your guide to living your best life in January in Madison. Head to our show notes for some links to the events we mentioned. That's all for today, here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone who loves hitting the hills for some skiing? We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take the best care.